Joining us now, the one, the only, Mike Gill. Well, there's actually two. Your dad counts too, but I guess he goes by Michael, right, MG?
Probably more professional.
Or Mr. Gill, as I often call him each Friday when we see him for our lunch.
Sure, yeah. I just usually call him Dad or Pop or, whoa.
Yeah, I would say Dad works for you. So, MG, first and foremost, we appreciate you coming back on with us on your day off, and we also are thankful because there's just so much Sixers news that continues to pour in, including I'm referring to him as the Turkish delight. That would be Furkan Korkmaz. I know you were excited when you saw that he officially signed his contract, and it looks like he's going to play tonight in the Summer League.
Yeah, it looks like he is. And, what's interesting about that story, I actually had texted somebody with the Sixers today to ask if he was playing, and they said likely, but, a couple I's and T's need to be crossed. The surprising part that I got, the information that I got, which I didn't share with anybody because I was day, but the news that I got was he was bypassing the under-20 tournament. It's going to be on the Turkish under-20 national team. And apparently, for a lot of these guys, I know in hockey, this, Pete, the Olympics and these type of tournaments are big deals to play for your country. And for Korkmaz to decide not to play for his country and play in the NBA Summer League, it kind of gives you a pretty good indication that this kid really is focused on trying to make an impression with the Sixers and make this team. I don't know that there are minutes there for him, but he's certainly given it his best shot because to give up the opportunity to represent his country in the under-20 games I was pretty surprised by that.
Yeah, you're right, Mike Gill. And first impressions, they say, are lasting impressions. And so the first impression that the fans are going to get is really twofold. One, like you said, he's going to skip that under-20 European Championship that was scheduled to take place July 15th to the 23rd in Greece. So he's not going to be a part of Turkey's under-20 team because he signed the contract today to be a part of the Sixers. But in that contract, Mike Gill, the buyout was $2 million, and NBA teams only allowed to contribute up to $675,000. So they say, money talks and what walks. Well, Korkmaz spending some of his own soon-to-be dollars to get out of Europe and come over and be a part of the Sixers. I think that speaks volumes.
Yeah, he paid about $1.5 million or something like that, $1.4 million just for the opportunity to play for the Sixers. And think about that comment, 2 years ago, saying, hey, someone is actually going to pay to play for the Sixers right now. It's just another indication of how things have changed and, the perception of the franchise has changed. And look, I know for a couple of years there, the criticism of not having veteran players, was it warranted? Sure. If you are somebody who's kind of old school and thinks having veteran players around helps develop a team, I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm saying that I don't know that it's one way. It's kind of the old school way, and it's like the way that most people were brought up on. But I think what makes Sixers team unique and having people want to come play for them is the fact that they are a lot of young guys and that they're going to kind of come up together instead of having an old veteran guy kind of here for a year and then he moves on and then another guy comes in. I always said, yes, they didn't have the 15-year NBA veteran that was kind of here with them. But what they did throughout this process was they groomed their own veteran players. Robert Covington is now a veteran on this team. They have guys who have been in the league, who have traveled, who have gone through the ups and downs of an NBA season, and mostly downs, who can now mentor these young kids. So I applaud the fact that the Sixers resisted criticism to go out and get a mid-level free agent, which may or may not have helped them win more games and helped ruin – I don't want to say ruin's not the right word, but would have gone against their salary cap. If they had veterans on this team, guys, there's a chance that they can't overspend for J.J. Redick because they're tied into some mid-level veteran that they're overpaying just to have a veteran on the team. Instead, they resisted that, And we're able to overspend on a guy that, hey, who knows? If he got 2 contract offers, one from the Sixers for $19 million and one from, say, Houston for $19 million, where is he choosing? He maybe picks the Rockets or, so I think a lot of that is a big factor as to where this team is and how they are coming up as a young group together. And I think you're going to see more teams go that route.
Hey, Mike, I hope on your days off you at least have been able to watch Markelle Fultz. And in that first Summer League game, he put up a nice little stat line. Also, he's been getting a lot of praise from the team and around the league as well, even some Kevin Durant respect over to Markelle Fultz. What were your first impressions of the number 1 overall pick for the Sixers?
Keep this in mind. He has not played since January, February, because he didn't play late in the Washington season. So he is one of the rustier guys in terms of 5-on-5 live action. That being said, he came right out, scored right away, had a step back 3. I was pretty impressed with that. And I think you saw, Pete, you'll like this because when we talk about wingspan, I think you saw why that's important on display the other night. Here's a kid who gets to the rim, and he's in traffic, but his wingspan and his ability to shoot up over outstretched arms in the paint is a big plus for him, and I think you got a chance to see a little bit of that. I thought you got to see just about a little bit of everything from him the other night. Now, that being said, my tweet the other day was I've watched a bunch of Summer League games, Sixers, Celtics, a bunch of teams, the Orlando Summer League. I've been watching a lot of it. My takeaway is Ben Simmons is going to be the best rookie in the NBA this year. He is head and shoulders better than guys in this class. He was so much more dominating than any player I've seen in the Summer League. And Jaylen Brown, who was a second-year player, he had 29 points the other night, and he really had a big night for the Celtics. Those type of guys obviously are not in the conversation. I'm talking about just the rookie classes. If you watch Simmons last year, he was so much more. Now, you could say that last year's rookie class wasn't all that good, and maybe that's why he shined. But to me, that was my takeaway, is I watch a lot of rookies already, and Simmons is head and shoulders better than the guys in this class so far.
Now, with the Rookie of the Year race for next year, do we see some similarities with between Simmons and Fultz as it was for Embiid and Saric this year? I think it's going to be more clear-cut next year, knowing that Simmons or Fultz should happen to be the Rookie of the Year next year?
Well, let's be honest. If Embiid played 50 games, which was what Patrick Ewing played when he won the Rookie of the Year, that's kind of like I think the cutoff line is 50 games. Had Embiid played 50 games, it wasn't even a question that Embiid was, and I still, I don't care that he didn't win the Rookie of the Year. I'm just saying that for conversation purposes, to vote for him at all and to say that he was, if you were going to vote for him and voted for him third, that's asinine because he's clearly better than the other two guys. So that you're saying I'm willing to vote for him, I'm just not saying he's the best guy, ridiculous. As long as Ben Simmons or Markelle Fultz play a full season worth of games or however many games is the kind of cutoff line, I think you'll see one of those two guys. I don't think it goes to a point where they'll cancel each other out. I think one guy, would be, I don't want to say head and shoulders, but I think you'll have a guy that someone will be, more deserving than the other. Like Embiid was more deserving numerically than Saric was. It's just he didn't play enough games. So I get that argument from that get off my lawn crowd, but, he was clearly the best player in the league. And I think Simmons will clearly be the best player between these two guys. And that's not a knock on Fultz. I just think that Simmons will do so many things of a guy of that size that you have not seen in this league for a long time, that he will get the attention nationally more so than Fultz, who might be more entertaining locally.
Mike Gill with us, the host of this program, and he's got his final day off before he comes back in studio with us tomorrow to have our normal banter that we have on a Thursday and do our Three from the Guys segment that we do and have all our fun that we have here each day from 2 o'clock until 6 o'clock. So, MG, of course, I know your devices are always going, so I'm sure you saw the Gordan Hayward news pretty soon after it was announced. What were your initial thoughts on the Celtics move to go out and get Gordan Hayward and bring him into the fold?
I think it's a great move for Boston for this season, I'm kind of intrigued by look, I've said all along, while Boston, they won 53 games, they were the number one seed. I don't think a lot of people took them seriously this year, meaning, yes, they were the best team in the East, but I don't think anybody picked them to go to the finals. We all kind of understood that Boston doesn't have a superstar. They're a team that has very good players. They've got a couple of all-stars, but not really that superstar. The thing that people like about Boston is they have a lot of assets. They have the ability to go out and add more top-end talent. Getting Gordan Hayward gives them another all-star. They're still lacking the superstar. So while I think it closes the gap on Cleveland, maybe to make it a more intriguing series, I don't think it puts them over the top on Cleveland. The question then becomes, what happens to Jason Tatum? What happens with Jaylen Brown? The last time I checked, they all play the same position. So are you now stunting Tatum's growth? Are you taking minutes away from Jaylen Brown? What happens with Jay Crowder? They lose Kelly Olynyk because of this situation. They're probably going to have to get rid of maybe Crowder or somebody else, guys who kind of made the Celtics what they were with this 53-win team. I still think it's 1 and 2 Cleveland and Boston, but I'm not sure the timeline still matches up for Boston to overtake Cleveland. You know, how many more years? Now, if Cleveland doesn't have LeBron after next year, now Boston maybe jumps to the forefront. But as long as LeBron's in Cleveland, Boston, I think, still the timeline's not going to match up for them because eventually Al Horford's going to start slowing down. It could be sooner than later. You got a 5'8" kid who's 28 years old. We saw Allen Iverson. He started to slow down as he got a little older. You know, you're a small guy, you get beat up. You saw Isaiah got hurt last year. While I still think Boston is – I was asked the other night, 5 years from now, who's going to be better, Philly or Boston? And my answer was Philly. I think Boston's better this year and possibly next year. I think after that, Philly's top-end talent will surpass Boston's all-stars. I think the Sixers have 2 superstar potential players. Boston has 3 all-star players. And there's a big difference between superstars and all-stars. And I think Boston has all-stars, which they shouldn't be knocked for. There's not a lot of superstars in this league. So the people who think that, you know, oh, everybody doesn't like Boston. No, Boston's very, very, very good. Unfortunately, it's a league that is short on superstars, and they still don't have any.
Mike Gill with us here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Yeah, MG, immediately when I saw that news, I also saw your Twitter traffic of people going back and forth with you of which team. It's almost like, and we talked about this after the season. The season was barely in the books when we said, well, who's going to try to close the gap on the Cavs, and how are they going to do that? And I thought in some of the, you know, we do the need to know or things to know segment early in the show, and I thought some of the information in there about Danny Ainge. That's the second straight summer that he's gotten an all-star, a player coming off an all-star season as they try to pick up the pieces for right now, not right for the future. So 2 different ways of building the team, and Danny Ainge is trying to close that gap.
Yeah, and look, Boston still has a chance. I mean, Ainge is going to have more assets. They still have a lot of picks coming up and high picks. I mean, the question is, okay, you got Gordan Hayward, who's a nice – I like Gordan Hayward, very good player. I think he'll fit into the Boston team pretty nicely. But what does that mean for some of their other lottery picks? What does that mean for Jaylen Brown? What happens to him? What happens to Jason Tatum? Can they all play together? You know, are you going to have to end up trading one of those guys because there's just not enough? It's almost like the Sixers situation with Embiid, Noel, and Okafor. You had 3 guys who were all high picks and high players. You couldn't fit them all in. There just wasn't enough minutes. Now, it's a little different when you have 3, I guess, small forwards, if you will, as opposed to 3 centers. You can get multiple small forwards on the court at the same time. But is that going to, you know, they still don't have a rim protector. They still have problems in the paint defensively. I would have probably been better off if Boston spent their money on Nerlens Noel in the restricted free agent market rather than going out and getting Gordan Hayward and just kept Jaylen Brown, and Tatum and built with those two young guys and gone with the young kid like Noel as the guy in the center, they still don't have that piece that they were lacking last year, and they added Gordan Hayward, which is nice, but you also had two guys that play the same position as him. So this isn't a knock on them of where they are right now. They're the second-best team in the East. That's clear. 3 through 8, I think it's going to be the wild, wild East, because I think Toronto bringing their core back probably gives them a leg up on the rest. But after that, I mean, Washington, if they lose Otto Porter, which they say they're going to match, but even if they bring Otto Porter back, I don't know that that's anything better than they were last year where they were only a 49-win team. I mean, I say only, that's a nice year, but they're not. It's not like they're a 55-win team looking to – they're a 49-win team trying to build on it, and I don't know that they're going to be able to make a deal to add to that. I think Indiana takes a step back. I think Chicago takes a step back. I think Atlanta takes a step back. So I think the East is going to be wide open from just about 3 down to 8. But Boston, I think, is clearly still in the number 2 spot, if not the number 1 spot. I mean, it's not to say that they couldn't win the conference again, but can they beat Cleveland in a 7-game series? And I think they still come up short.
Mike, throwing it back to Gordan Hayward for a second, and I feel like I'm the only one who's actually kind of surprised he decided to go with Boston, considering what they had in Utah last year was pretty good, and I get they're in a stacked Western Conference, but they just traded for Ricky Rubio. They have some nice pieces over in Utah, but Miami even seemed like a more enticing option for Gordan Hayward, at least to me. The only thing enticing about Boston really was head coach Brad Stevens. Otherwise, Miami, obviously probably a better area to live. Also, you have Pat Riley in the front office, who is basically willing to do almost anything to bring in big names to the Miami Heat and looking to build a team instantly to try to contend for a championship. I mean, am I really the only one who thinks? Really, am I crazy to think that Gordan Hayward kind of made a mistake going to Boston over staying at home in Utah or going to Miami?
It's a good question, Nick. I mean, I don't know if he made a mistake. I think Boston gives you a better chance to at least advance further. I don't know that Utah is a Western Conference finalist team with him there. I think he understood, or maybe he should understand, that that's the problem with teams like Utah and Milwaukee and Minnesota. Minnesota, though, keep in mind, they traded for some of these guys. They didn't attract a free agent. If you're in Utah and you have the team you have, how are they getting any better? You're not getting a top-level free agent to come there. So basically you have maxed out with Gordan Hayward, Rudy Gobert. You lost George Hill. How is that team getting any better? So I don't think it's a bad move to get out. First off, to get away from the West. But if you're at a team that is in a market that's tough to attract free agents to, you have to make the decision. Can we grow with this team anymore, and how are we going to get any better? You're good enough to be a 50-plus win team and get into the playoffs, which means what? You're not going to get a draft pick pretty much that's going to help you. You're going to have to make a trade to get better, which is not easy to do in the NBA. You're not attracted a free agent there. So it goes down to Miami and Boston. And I think if you read his Player Tribune article, he felt that him and Brad Stevens had unfinished business together. And he said, this was the hardest decision I ever had to make, but when push came to shove, who was there to answer my questions just like he was 7 years ago? Brad Stevens. And I think Brad Stevens won out in this decision for Gordan Hayward. I was surprised that he decided to go, because everything I heard about the kid was, he doesn't really like the spotlight. Being in a bigger city might not be what he's looking for. He seemed very comfortable with where he was. His Players Tribune piece, he wrote about it, how he had a lot of anxiety just becoming a professional, and that getting used to Utah, that he grew up there and he met his wife and his family. A lot of times that tugs you to stay. So I was surprised that he left, but I think Boston or Miami probably give him a better chance to advance than Utah does.
Even with that, looking at Gordan Hayward now, the future of the Boston Celtics, they still have to pay a guy like Isaiah Thomas after this season, and he's going to be garnering, I would assume, a lot of cash from them. Really, do the Celtics expect to have to beat the Cavs now, considering as long as LeBron's there, like you said before, they're likely not going to get by Cleveland, and I feel like their window has just gotten even tighter considering they brought in Gordan Hayward. They're going to have to pay more guys. They're going to lose role players like a Kelly Olynyk because they're bringing in Gordan Hayward. It just seems to me they are shutting down and they are almost closing that window of opportunity that they have in order to get by the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Well, this is a big year for Boston in terms of how much should they close the gap on Cleveland. And then, of course, next offseason is what happens with LeBron. Because if LeBron stays, you're probably figuring we're still going to be short. If LeBron leaves, then Boston probably feels like, hey, we've got the best team now. So I think there's a little bit of playing for the future, but also being cognizant of, look, we're still pretty good now. We're still a team that is attractive to free agents because if LeBron leaves, we can be the next team that steps in and say, hey, look, now we're the top dog. Come play with us. The Isaiah Thomas thing, though, are they going to want to spend money on him? Al Horford, this was the problem with a lot of, I don't think people were being critical of Boston or saying, we're not a fan of them or we don't like them. I think we're just being realistic that, look, they got a lot of nice players, good all-star level players, but they don't have that superstar. The way for them to get that superstar is through one of these assets that they have obtained. So far, they haven't got it. Maybe it's Jaylen Brown. Maybe it's Jason Tatum. But, again, it goes back to Gordan Hayward. Does he take time away from those two guys? So have you stunted the growth of two guys that you're hoping are part of your long-term success plan? And it goes back to, did they build a team with more of now in the focus than down the road? I think they're kind of giving mixed signals off. You know what I mean? Like, do they want to be a team to win now, or do they want to be a team that's going to be ready to take over for Cleveland? And I think that goes back to where the Sixers situation, people laugh and say, when people make the comment that Hinkie understood, look, we're not beating LeBron. This is LeBron's East for the next 5 to 7 years. Why not rip it down now? And then by the time LeBron is starting to slow down, we have the pieces that are getting into their primes. We're not going to win right away with this young team. They might be fun. They might be exciting. We might get into the playoffs and have some fun. But we want to be the team that's ready to take over when LeBron slows down or leaves. And that's where I think Boston is not sure if they're that team or not. They kind of are giving mixed signals, it seems like.
Mike Gill with us here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN and MG. That's what I was going to bring up to you, that, 2 years ago this team won 10 games, and now people are so excited, like almost the entire fan base is not saying if they'll make the playoffs, but when they make the playoffs. We're already talking playoffs, and I see, MG, you're converting people one believer at a time or one non-believer at a time, as I saw some Twitter traffic with you earlier in the afternoon today of someone who did not like what Hinkie did, but is now coming to your side or your stance of what you just said, which is build yourself for a year or two from now when LeBron isn't LeBron anymore. Maybe Cleveland doesn't have him on the roster, and the East is there for the taking.
You know what, Pete? I get more and more people, believe it or not, switching over more than I thought. There's not a lot of people who would say, hey, you know what, I was dead wrong, but more people saying, hey, you know what, I'm willing to give it a shot. And I think this goes to what we talked about a week ago. The Sixers understood that, yes, you might turn your back on a couple of people, but in the end, those people they'll be there. They know. They took a chance to say, yes, we might turn our back on some people, but in the end, when we're good, people aren't going to be able to stay away. So, yeah, they took a big risk. They rolled the dice. And I like how, you always hear people say, oh, it's easy to lose. Yeah, it's easy to lose. You can throw out a horrible product and lose basketball games. But what's not easy is to take that risk and to do it multiple years and to say, we're going to take a chance that we could lose a big portion of our fan base. And maybe some people, Pete, don't come back. Maybe there's a couple people out there or a handful of people out there that say, you know what, I was so turned off by this that I will never root for that team again. You know what, though? Those people are in the minority. And you see this everywhere. How many people, Pete, do you know that said, I will not go to an Eagles game ever again because they signed Michael Vick? And maybe there were people that don't go and still don't go because Michael Vick was a Philadelphia Eagle. But not enough to make a dent into any bit of the fan base. I told you last week, a buddy of mine owns an apparel store, and he said, look, we're we're never sold more Sixers stuff. He texted me the other day. He said, our Sixers numbers have now surpassed our Eagles numbers. He's like, I cannot keep it on the shelf. It is crazy. And you know what? I don't know why people have a problem with that. If you look at a team that has been so poor and people are excited about it, isn't that what sports is about? Like, to be excited about your team, to have a reason to cheer for them. I know we have this mentality of, well, if you weren't with them through the bad times, you're not a real fan. Guess what? People can pick and choose how they want to be a fan, when they want to be a fan, and how much time in their life they have to be a fan. Not everybody could be like us, where our lives revolve around sports because it's our job. Maybe some people have jobs and families and other things going on that when the team's not good, my stance is I don't want to support you. But when the team is good, I will make more time for you. So I don't have a problem with the Sixers fans. Look, I think it's comical. I think it's funny that some people who were so against it are now like, hey, this team's pretty good. Well, no crap. We all sat through the 3 years of it. But you know what, Pete? How many games did you go to? I went to about 40 games over the last couple of years. And you know what? I enjoyed it. The people who say they put a bad product out there, not really. They put a young product out there. They put a product that was certainly not talented enough to win, but those kids played hard. Those kids played tough, and they were entertaining. Every year there was a reason to go watch them, whether it was, hey, I want to go see Nerlens Noel, or hey, I want to go see Jahlil Okafor, or hey, I want to go see Joel Embiid. They were constantly giving you something to come out and watch and a reason to get excited for the future. So I certainly enjoyed the last 3 years. Was there a lot of winning? No. But you know what? I think the story is a lot better, has a lot better ending because of the way the beginning of the story started, which was a pretty bad 3 years. It makes the end result, I think, that much sweeter.
He's Mike Gill. He's the host of this program, and he'll be back with us tomorrow in studio as we continue to talk Sixers basketball. Plus, on Friday, you won't want to miss Mike and I when we have Dave Schauer, the Sixers VP of Communications, in studio. He's going to catch us up with all the latest news about Markelle Fultz, Furkan Korkmaz, and more, and he'll let us know about the You Will MG and Dave about the Christmas in July promotion that we are joining forces with him on. You can help the AC Rescue Mission and win great Sixers prizes as well. So MG will be back tomorrow in studio. MG, I've lost both of the three from the guys without you here. So when you get back in studio tomorrow, I fully expect that you're going to let me whip your butt because these guys are killing me. The fill-ins are winning every time.
That's very predictable from Damian to give the fill-in guys some, make them feel good.
But he's throwing them a bone. Tomorrow we go at it. You and me, mano a mano. I'm looking forward to it, pal.
Yeah, I will say this, Friday when Dave comes in, the Christmas in July, this is going to be pretty cool because we're going to have a lot of autographed Sixers memorabilia. We've got club box tickets to Sixers games and a whole bunch of others. We're going to be having a live broadcast at a place to be determined on July 31st. We're calling it Christmas in July because the people from the AC Rescue Mission need our listeners' help. And everybody who brings a supply to either the radio station or we're going to register people online to win these prizes. And then if you come out to the live broadcast on July 31st and you bring supplies with you that day to the live show, everybody who brings a supply to the station or to the live show, all will be entered to win all these Sixers prizes. So we'll have all sorts of autographed memorabilia, club box tickets to games, and other stuff from the Sixers and the UFC. So we're looking forward to that. And it's a great way for the listeners out there to win some prizes and do something nice for the community. So every day in July is going to be Christmas in July for the Atlantic City Rescue Mission.
Great stuff. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to visiting with Dave for more information on that on Friday. Thanks, MG, for contributing and calling in, and we'll see you right back here where you belong in your seat tomorrow.
All right, guys. Take care.